In the news, movies, and television series, the US Secret Services have always been portrayed as super experienced, robust agents, ready to give their lives for their protectees. And this is likely the case. The problem is that on 13th of July, we saw something that does not match this stereotype. On that July day, we witnessed one of the greatest embarrassments in the history of the Secret Service. I am, of course, talking about the assassination attempt on former President Trump, who came close to adding his name to those of Abraham Lincoln, James A. Garfield, William McKinley, J.F. Kennedy, his brother Robert Kennedy, Ronald Reagan, who, although he was not killed, a bullet did hit his chest. In short, a whole long list. You can call it a miracle, luck, or even destiny. We're not getting involved. What is clear is that the fact that Donald Trump is alive is not exactly thanks to the Secret Service.
Trump shooting is Secret Service's most stunning failure in decades. Targeting of the former president marks perhaps the biggest security crisis for the agency since Reagan was shot in 1981.
Secret Service's solemn mission is to protect our nation's leaders. On July 13th, we failed. As a director of the United States Secret Service, I take full responsibility for any security lapse of our agency.
And no wonder, Kimberly, Trump's security team, looked 4th Division. The images they left us with were pitiful, but, well, just as well that you resigned. The thing is that now an investigation is being carried out, which, for now, has come to nothing, and which has all the signs that it's going to remain with nothing. But don't you think that what happened with Trump was too serious to just leave it at that? We're talking about someone trying to assassinate the former president of a nation that has 5,500 nuclear warheads and the most powerful military in the world. Also, did a lone wolf really manage to get around all the security measures? How is it possible that he had time to fire so many shots before being detected? Are we talking about simple and incomprehensible mistakes in security, or a well-structured plan that failed? VisualPolitik community, if there is one thing clear in all this, it's that now, having spent enough time and taken enough perspective, we have many more doubts and questions about this case than clear spots. And we don't want to scare you, but something like what we saw on the 13th of July could happen again at any time. So get out your magnifying glass and detective cap, we're getting started. The war in Ukraine, the Israel-Palestine conflict, the tensions in the South China Sea. We are on VisualPolitik. I don't think there is any need for presentations. The global situation right now is really complex, and in the midst of all this immense turmoil, wham! Suddenly, a young man appears, causes a worldwide earthquake, and is about to change history. I'm talking about Thomas Matthew Crooks, male, 20 years old. No history. Crooks worked as an assistant in a nursing home, and some classmates claim that he was bullied. That might give us a clue as to the motives, yet other classmates deny it. Be that as it may, what is clear is that with our main suspect, soon begins to emerge the first contradictions. First, Crooks had been rejected from the school's shooting group because he was a poor marksman, a testimony that doesn't fit with the aim he had in the attack. Because while it's true that he missed, the fact that Trump is not already history is mainly because he moved his head a little, and the shot was 3 centimeters away from the target. And that, in a shot made with about 150 meters distance, is to have a very, very good aim. But the incongruities are not only in his sudden skill as a shooter, but also in his political vision. Check it out.
The FBI has been scouring Mr. Crooks's possessions since the shooting on Saturday, including 2 phones and at least 1 laptop, for clues about his motive. So far, they have found no indication that Mr. Crooks, who was a registered Republican, had strong partisan political views one way or another.
Not even in the search of the house he shared with his parents did they find any political or ideological information, and not in his cell phone either. Matthew was registered as a Republican voter, but made a June 2021 donation of $15 to the Political Action Committee backing Democrats. This is something really strange. A 20-year-old kid with bad aim, with no apparent political fanaticism, on the verge of putting a country in check, allegedly all by himself. It's strange, but let's go back to the facts, to what has become known in the days and weeks following the attack. 5:32 p.m. A Secret Service sniper sees Crooks using a rangefinder. This raises suspicions, but they decide not to act. Then, 2 minutes before Trump took to the stage, onlookers saw Crooks lying in a sniper position and tried to raise the alarm. At 6:10 p.m., a policeman is leaning out on the roof and is gunned down by Crooks. Because he was holding on with both hands to climb, he is unable to draw his weapon and simply drops. Quickly, Crooks aims his AR-15 rifle at the former president and... you already know the rest of the story. It's really strange how the Secret Service acts. At first glance, this whole mess could be called a botched job. In fact, this case would be a perfect example. How is it possible that nobody did anything? Remember, we're talking about the former president of the United States. How could they not act when they saw such strange behavior? Well, the point is that this story raises more questions. For example, what if it wasn't really a botched job? Could it have been a conspiracy? I know it's hard to believe, but Crooks was seen. He was identified. He was near the lectern. The Secret Service had to be following him. Not that she exactly generates much credibility, but this congresswoman belonging to the most fanatic group of Trumpism also pointed in this direction.
The people there knew that there was a danger. They knew there was a threat to President Trump, and it was allowed to happen. Was there a stand-down order, Ms. Cheadle? Was there a conspiracy to kill President Trump?
Absolutely not.
The lack of information that the Secret Service has revealed about this case is very striking. They seem more lost than an octopus in a garage. And this has obviously fueled all kinds of conspiracy theories. Whether it was an evil plot or not, it comes down to a simple nod of the head, which seems to have saved Trump from certain death, for which no one has yet come up with a realistic explanation. Of course, we're talking about a guy who's been making a lot of enemies in recent years, but a guy with Crooks's profile? I don't know. We would all have expected him to be some kind of fanatic, some member of a radical organization, someone pursuing some specific cause, but there's nothing like that. And precisely because of this, there is one question that has been gaining momentum. Could the state sewers be involved in all this? This is not an entirely crazy question. The United States is a country that has some peculiarities. Some institutions such as the CIA, the NSA, and even the FBI are not always accountable to their superiors. They have such a degree of autonomy that they sometimes move in the shadows without reporting what they do. This is what has always fueled all kinds of theories about the power and activities of these organizations, which are as effective as they are opaque. And right there is where the plot theory comes in. What if one of these organizations considered Trump a danger to national security and wanted him out of the way? At the time of the attack, Biden was still a candidate, and Trump was leading in the polls. But to know to what extent we can talk about conspiracy, we first have to know exactly what the Secret Service is like. And above all, we have to take a closer look. We have to ask questions and look for answers.
The secret negligent.
The Secret Service was created in 1865 by Abraham Lincoln, who incidentally was the victim of one of the most tragic assassinations in history. Initially, it was an institution created to fight against counterfeiters of money and public documents. They also began to dedicate themselves to the protection of American presidents and leaders. It has since become one of the most recognized and attention-grabbing bodies in Hollywood. Although their results have not always been the best, from Kennedy to Reagan, several presidents have been shot more than once. And let's not even talk about the candidates. At the very least, they should be looked at. Now, before we cast stones at them, let's give them a chance. We need to see what they did and what they didn't do to protect Trump. So the question is, how do Secret Service security operatives work? The system of protection for presidents and candidates is usually based on a ring system involving Secret Service units and local police forces in each place. The Secret Services forms the smallest and closest ring to the political leader, in this case Trump, and from there other security rings are formed. To see it more clearly, let's say it would be like this. The inner circle is strictly in charge of the Secret Service. They are the first to be in contact with the former president in any scenario. In the next ring, the local security forces, such as the county police, for example, act, or at least that is the theory, in coordination with the Secret Services in the security operation. They are in charge of standing between the crowd and Trump. And finally, the farthest ring is also formed by the local security forces. In this case, its objective is to control access and exits to the site and patrols of the area, always based on the security perimeter established by the Secret Service. This is important. It is the Secret Service that always designs and supervises the operations. That is why it is so difficult to understand why they would commit such a botched operation. They know the dangers. They are seasoned. They have the best security minds. And yet, just hours after the attack, the Secret Service was quick to blame local forces for the attack itself. It was not a failure of the Secret Service, of course. That would be impossible. And in fact, it is hard to believe. So if there is no conspiracy, we can only point to the terrible negligence on the part of the local police. And so suddenly, within hours, all media spotlights were on the Butler County Sheriff's Office, the Butler Township Police Department, and the Pennsylvania State Police. But is it really the fault of the local police who were guarding the perimeter? Or perhaps these bodies were just used as scapegoats. Well, the truth is that the Secret Service has done nothing more than evade responsibility. Because, let's see, to begin with, they were the ones in charge of defining the size and priorities of the perimeter to be protected, even though the local forces were then left in charge. In fact, security experts identify the first mistake right here. The perimeter was too small. The shooter was only 120 yards from the target, on an open rooftop directly in front of the speaker's podium. That would allow for an easy, clear shot at Trump. The building had been searched on orders from the Secret Service, but they didn't even go up to the roof. They only patrolled the interior, even though this was the only roof that posed any risk. The shooter was so close that minutes before he acted, several attendees of the event managed to spot him and alert local forces. In fact, such was the closeness between the shooter and Trump that it has only recently come to light that this roof had been considered an ideal place to position snipers from the Secret Service. And of course the question is, so why wasn't it used in the end? We didn't want to put an agent on a slanted roof. Yes, this was the official response from the director of the Secret Service. Today, however, we're all aware that the Secret Service was severely understaffed to cover that Trump campaign event. Bill Gage, a former Secret Service agent, told The Economist that an event of that magnitude had to have many more sniper teams. But the Secret Service did not even have half of the necessary number deployed. What's more, the district attorney had to lend 4 teams of snipers to protect an ex-president who was a candidate in the middle of an election campaign. That is incomprehensible. The local police have also said that they warned the Secret Service and were told that they would cover the roof. Take note, these are statements from a Butler local police officer. These are statements taken from his body camera in the moments after the shooting.
I fucking told them they needed to put guys here on the roof. I told them on fucking Tuesday. I talked to the Secret Service guys. They said, yeah, no problem. We're going to put guys up here.
But they never did. 10 minutes after the attack, another officer said that he did not understand anything. He even thought that the shot from the roof was their doing. This is what one officer said to another.
I thought you were on the roof. I thought it was you. I thought it was you. Why weren't we on the roof? Why weren't we?
Then it has been said that agents were not stationed on the roof because it was too hot, but they didn't seal the entrances either. Nor did they place cameras or use drones or anything else. The coverage, the spaces, the distribution of agents, everything malfunctioned right from the start. But how could such an experienced agency be so understaffed for an event like this? Some comment that the Secret Service was swamped by another event that Jill Biden, the First Lady, was attending in Pittsburgh on the same day as Trump's event. But isn't such a coincidence strange? Crooks couldn't have known that, and it's certainly no secret that the campaign trail was in full swing. On the other hand, the Republican campaign has commented that during the last few months, the Secret Service has refused to extend Trump's custody, even though it seems that they have received threats, including from some important actors such as Iran.
Iran blasts Trump assassination plot claims. U.S. media reports claim that an Iran plan to target Republican presidential hopeful is unrelated to attack in Pennsylvania.
But then, are we talking about inefficiency or intentionality? Can what is perhaps the most sophisticated security force in the world really do its job so dreadfully badly? Where is the catch? Well, let's find out.
The circle closes.
Donald Trump has not openly singled out his political opponents as responsible for the attack, although some Trumpist figures have dropped that possibility. Some say that certain highly radicalized Democratic profiles are ultimately responsible for the attack. However, let's not go too fast. In this whole story, there is still an uncomfortable truth that not many people want to touch. The real person responsible for the attack has not yet come to light. Kimberly Cheatle, who has already been removed as director of the Secret Service, went to Congress, where she was confronted by Republicans and Democrats in a merciless round of questions. Now, what can we learn from his interrogation? Well, see for yourselves.
How can a 20-year-old with his father's AR-15 assault weapon climb onto a roof with a direct 150-yard line of sight to the speaker's podium without the Secret Service or local police stopping him?
So again, sir, I will say we are 9 days out from this event, and I would like to know those answers as well.
The agency's highest authority, the same person who had all the agency's information at hand, comes to say that she would like to know the answers to the same questions we are wondering about. According to her, Crooks was identified as a suspicious person before Trump spoke because he had a golf rangefinder. But that because the Secret Service treats a suspicious person differently to one identified as a confirmed threat, Trump was able to take the stage. In other words, a stranger with a rangefinder on a rooftop less than 150 meters from the former president was not a threat. That's just crazy. Is Cheadle playing everyone for fools? I think so. 60 years ago, the Secret Service consisted of about 1,500 employees and had a budget of just over $5 million. Today, they have 8,000 agents and a budget of $3 billion. And yet with all this, they can't even properly cover a couple of buildings near a presidential candidate in the middle of an election campaign. And now the former head of the Secret Services says the failure was that they need 1,500 more employees. Is this what caused Crooks to be identified as a suspect rather than a threat? Is that the reason why they decided not to cover a rooftop located so close to the former president and from where any potential assailant would have a clean shot? Is that what made the security ring abnormally small? What explains that out of 8,000 employees, the former president's event was full of professionals who could not even manage to holster a gun properly? In short, it's utter nonsense. Nonsense of such enormous magnitude that we, and I'm going to be very clear about this, find it hard to believe that it was 100% accidental. We are not saying that it was not, but it's hard to believe. In a video that has recently surfaced via Fox News, the shooter is clearly seen running over the roof. And seconds later, a pair of Secret Service agents standing next to Trump, who were watching Crook, turned around just as he appeared on the roof and put their hands to their guns, visibly exhilarated. And all this several minutes before the shots were fired. Did they know? Did they see? Why didn't they stop everything? Did they allow it? These are questions that even Trump asks himself.
There was a lack of coordination. Oftentimes they'll say, "Sir, could you wait 10 minutes, please? Sir, could you wait 20 minutes? There's a storm overhead or lightning or something, right?" And that happens often. And this would have been a perfect time for that to have happened. But it didn't get coordinated. That was the problem.
To add fuel to the fire, the new acting director of the Secret Service, Ronald Rowe, recently admitted that the error was one of imagination, for not imagining that there was a real danger and for not questioning their own operations. Now, to say this throws everything that the core officers and the Butler rally were supposed to have been doing, and should have been doing, into disrepair. We're talking about a body whose agents don't sleep the night before an event of this type, which they call game day. They are obsessed with putting trucks, banners, and billboards between the line of sight of high points, like the roof Crooks climbed on, to block the ability of any shooter. However, all that did not happen this time. It's as if they had just as easily passed the point of doing what they always do, and this only fuels doubts and suspicions. Of course, these are all questions that, at the very least, must be taken seriously. It's not enough to talk about conspiracy theories and move on to something else. An assassination attempt of this caliber deserves to have each and every question answered. It's no good if there's one iota of doubt. Basically, because not clarifying it to the final consequences could be counterproductive. For example, it could generate distrust towards the state, violent reactions among the most radical followers, or attempts to reproduce the attack against other personalities at a later date. In fact, this is what surely explains why, despite the sharp political divide in the country, both Democrats and Republicans agreed to receive Cheadle on cross-examination with much hostility. And if it is concluded that there has been no extra instigator, and it turns out that there is no Judeo-Masonic leader or Islamic communist conspiracy, so that means that it is the Secret Service's own bureaucracy and inefficiency that has left American leaders to their own devices. The Secret Service is to blame for what happened. Of this, there is little doubt at this point, but the origin of this could lie in something more endemic. Perhaps it has to do with the very radicalism that is plaguing American politics. Maybe some agents were not as motivated to protect the former president. I don't know, because the truth is that nothing fits. For example, a recent Reuters Ipsos poll revealed that 9 out of 10 citizens are concerned that violence is now being used in politics instead of peacefully resolving differences. And you all know how easy it is in the United States to get access to a gun. In other words, the political context itself tells us that the probability of a madman trying to kill the president or even a candidate could be very high. The Americans know it. You know it. The media know it. How could the Secret Service not know it? Crooks' profile doesn't fit, but it could have been anyone else, and the failures would have been exactly the same. In truth, if it is difficult to speak of conspiracy, it is precisely because of how botched the plan would have been. That is why everything indicates that it really was a mistake, although we will always have the doubt. Be that as it may, the shortcomings of the Secret Service have been so striking that right now, all that can be demanded are 3 things. an investigation to its ultimate consequences, whoever may fall, a thorough reform of the Secret Service, and that the weight of justice really falls on those responsible, whatever their position. An attack against a political leader is an attack against plurality, tolerance, and democracy itself. For this reason, the security services must make the population feel that these leaders are safe and not generate doubts or hesitation, exactly what has not happened in this case. This also protects the stability of the political system, and ultimately, the stability of democracy. At VisualPolitik, we will follow closely the investigations into this attack, but for now, it's your turn. Who do you think is responsible for the attack on Trump? Why do you think the Secret Service reacted as it did? Could this case fuel future attacks in the coming months or years? Well, leave us your opinions below in the comments and let's start a debate. And very importantly, if you liked this video, hit the like button and subscribe to VisualPolitik if you haven't already done so. Thank you very much for being there. All the best. I'll see you next time.